Jillian. I am sharing about Daniel chapters 3 and 4 today. Daniel chapter 3 goes over the image of gold and the blazing furnace with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And then chapter 4 is on Nebuchadnezzar's dream of a tree, which is different than his first dream that Daniel interpreted. So just starting off with chapter 3, what I learned, what I found interesting, obviously we have the big idea of the boldness and the faith of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego to defy King Nebuchadnezzar and his decree to worship this image of gold. I thought it was very interesting that in my translation, at least, I'm reading from the NIV, it only refers to King Nebuchadnezzar's statue as an image made of gold, 60 cubits high and 6 cubits wide. It never calls it anything other than that. And at first I was like, that's interesting that it's obviously not just a block of gold that's 60 cubits high, but I think it just kind of shows the point of how what the image wasn't important, but it was the idea that they were worshiping something made in that manner that was so idolatrous. We have Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. I love how they respond to King Nebuchadnezzar. I'm reading from verse 16. They say, "King Nebuchadnezzar, we do not need to defend ourselves before you in this matter." Don't even need to defend ourselves. If we are thrown into the blazing furnace, the God we serve is able to deliver us from it, and he will deliver us from your majesty's hand. But even if he does not, we want you to know, your majesty, that we will not serve your gods or worship the image of gold you have set up. That's such a powerful statement that, for one, that they're so bold and so blunt. I mean, they don't hold anything back. And it's not so much in an aggressive way, but we have defensive and we have offensive, and they've chosen to take an offensive approach to King Nebuchadnezzar's decree. And they choose to defend that even if they die. They're willing to sacrifice everything for this belief that they have and stand against everyone. I mean, imagine the people. This was a nation, and 3 of them chose to go against all of this. I could talk a lot more about it, but, you know, on a time crunch, it's hard to follow, hard to limit. Definitely read it for yourselves. There's a lot more in this chapter. I wanted to point out, too, that by the end of the chapter, Nebuchadnezzar is amazed and blown away. And in verse 26, it says, Nebuchadnezzar approached the opening of the blazing furnace and shouted, "Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, servants of the Most High God, come out, come here." They exit the furnace. They're totally unharmed. And then he says again in verse 28, "Praise be to the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who has sent his angel and rescued his servants. They trusted in him and defied the king's command and were willing to give up their lives rather than serve or worship any god except their own God. And he decrees that everyone must follow the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego." Which seems like so cool. What a turn he made. What a flip. But then we jumped into chapter 4 and suddenly it's very different. We went from such a statement of praise to suddenly Nebuchadnezzar's gone back to his old ways. And he has a dream and it really bothers him. And in verse 5, it specifically says, "I had a dream that made me afraid." And I can think of times when I've had dreams that, like, they aren't even nightmares. They just terrify me to my core for a very specific subconscious reason. I think our dreams can target things like that. He's really upset by this. And so he goes to Daniel again to interpret this dream because he's done this for him before. He describes to him this dream and it seems very beautiful. It seems very peaceful. And at first when you read this, you think, why does this bother him so much? it's talking about a tree, and it even says its leaves were beautiful, its fruit abundant, and on it was food for all. And then later, a few verses down, it suddenly takes a very dramatic turn, and you can kind of see why this bothers him so much. And it says in verse 15, let him be drenched, Nebuchadnezzar, with the dew of heaven. Let him live with the animals among the plants of the earth. Let his mind be changed from that of a man, and let him be given the mind of an animal till 7 times pass by for him. And Daniel interprets this dream to mean that he was literally going to lose his sanity and become like that of an animal. God is humbling him and bringing him down to his most basic animalistic instincts to say, I am God, I have power, and you do not. And how he strips him of everything that he had, of his kingdom, of not even his family, his life, but his sanity, his mind. That's everything. And as 7 years pass, he brings him to his knees to basically prove to him again that he is the Most High God. And this is the real turn for Nebuchadnezzar. He goes from saying, my power and my majesty, to saying, I, Nebuchadnezzar, raised my eyes toward heaven, and my sanity was restored. Then I praised the Most High. I honored and glorified him who lives forever. Now I, Nebuchadnezzar, praise and exalt and glorify the King of heaven, because everything he does is right, and all his ways are just. And those who walk in pride, he is able to humble. And this is just a powerful testimony and statement of God's power and his authority, and how he brought down a man who appeared to be humble and appeared to be worshipful, and it was very surfacey, and he made that real. He very clearly showed that to him and said, listen, I'm not fooled by this. You may be showing other people, but I know your true intentions, and I'm going to draw that out, and we're going to have a tough conversation. So those are my thoughts on Daniel's 3 and 4. Sorry for the length of this video, but thanks for listening to me share.